Right, here I am. Just the last second change of plans. I had 3 different tabs open for things that I was going to do. And then when I went to one of my Word documents, a completely different document was open. So I've taken that as a sign. And although people on Patreon will have read this assignment of mine that I'm going to read out, maybe the members also, I apologize. But I think it's pretty important. It's philosophical in nature, but it relates to religion, at least Christianity. And if I have time, there's a short piece that I wanted to do. I'll see how well it fits in, really. And I was just checking that I closed my windows. It is that loud, even with them closed. Okay. So I won't be able to see the chat momentarily, but So I was asked as part of my university course in philosophy to do an assignment regarding free will and determinism. And hopefully, succinctly, I explain both of those propositions anyway within the body of the text. And I'm looking for, I guess, an acceptable philosophical marriage of these concepts, or how they can be compatible because they're seen as mutually exclusive. And we see with Calvinism, certainly, like hard determinism, really, but it's not called determinism, it's predestination. And it's what is discussed here philosophically in terms, they see it in terms of God's will. However, free will, of course, is central to salvation if you are of most other Christian denominations. Anyway, let's get to it. So since ancient Greece, one of the most challenging questions in philosophy, full stop, has centered upon whether human beings possess free will in determining our own actions, as opposed to our actions being determined outside of our sphere of control. So granted, initially, and somewhat currently, but initially these spheres may have been restricted somewhat to the pantheon and the will of the gods, though naturalism in the West stretches back as far as the 6th century BC and the Milesian school of Greek philosophy, if not further than that. So determinism can be defined as the proposition that at any one time, the world, and indeed the universe, has only one immediate future that is possible. This would seem at odds, of course, with free will, and indeed it is common to use the term determinism as a name for the thesis that we have no free will. This mistake basically has led to controversy within the debate. Determinism is actually solely concerned with the laws of nature. It doesn't concern itself at all with free will, predictability, or accountability. Free will, on the other hand, is the idea that there exists the ability to exert control in terms of decision-making and making choices, and obviously by default deciding otherwise or refraining from alternate possible choices. Concepts such as moral responsibility or accountability are precluded by hard determinism, i.e. there is no space for those concepts. If human beings are moral agents, and yet we are confined to a system which is restricted by a retrospective chain of events that stretches back to before even our own birth, you see, because each moment only has one possible future, according to hard determinism, then there is zero room for moral agency. And that, like as an example, in terms of the assumption that a murderer could have done anything other than plan and execute a murder. Free will then is both a term and a concept which presents problems even if it had an uncontested definition, which it does not. Its definition is in and of itself integral within the debate as to whether humans possess it or not, for obvious reasons. Broadly speaking, it concerns choice or the capacity for choice. So philosophers have been divided somewhat when debating whether choice is relevant to free will to begin with. Without choice, however, the area of moral agency or responsibility is negated. Without choice, we are not responsible for our actions, either morally or civilly or legally even. It just extrapolates outward. Furthermore, the ability to knowingly act upon free will is also a factor in terms of responsibility. For instance, the age of culpability, at least in Britain, within the legal system, we deem that children below a certain age, I believe it's still 11, are incapable of knowingly crossing the boundaries that we deem to be crimes. We say they can behave poorly, they can behave badly, but they are not fully aware of the ramifications of their actions. So the ability to regard others as charitable, strong-willed, guilty, loving, mistaken, errant, for example, as the result of their actions, would appear to be meaningless, as would concepts such as right and wrong, good and evil, within this scenario, which is devoid of moral agency. And of course, as Christians, we don't see things this way. As sociable, self-aware animals that we humans are, these attributes are important indicators of the attractiveness of one's fellows in terms of friendship, support, relationships of many descriptions, etc. Therefore, any debate as to the existence of free will has just staggeringly far-reaching ramifications and is of the utmost importance. The way in which we view others and our desire to be viewed positively by others, or perhaps I just thought of teenagers, maybe wanting to be viewed as rebellious or cool, whichever way we wish to be viewed, can be said to be an integral part of how societies are maintained and the ways in which they're formed, actually. If something such as proof ever became available that we have no moral agency, if this would fundamentally challenge and negate the position that we have, and therefore indelibly affect both individuals and societies to an unfathomable degree. We see at the moment politically that there are moves to try to shift much of the moral agency, it seems, just onto one demographic, but I'm not going to go there. So how, therefore, we get to the crux of it now, do we marry up these seemingly contradictory theories, one which asserts that we have only one possible future at any given time, within which humans are an integral and causally determined part? How do we marry that with the notion that we are nevertheless imbued with sufficient freedom to be deemed morally responsible? I went all Christian there. So, that the world is part of a deterministic framework is not, no matter what science says, along with evolution, it's not conclusively proven. Science, for example, has historically veered quite sharply between acceptance and rejection of the proposition. So during the 17th century, it was posited that determinism was factual. That by obtaining knowledge of the status of every single particle and then combining this with a vast amount of calculative power using Newton's laws, that the data of their past and future could be ascertained with certainty. That's what was believed. Advances in quantum theory, however, have now caused physicists to believe that determinism breaks down, at the microscopic level, showing particle behavior, which you may remember from high school science, which falls outside any deterministic paradigm. Therefore, I do apologize for this kind of university language, reaffirming an element of incongruity within the world, i.e. introduces randomness again, or non-deterministic behaviors, and not by humans. So compatibilism. This is a theory which asserts and attempts to demonstrate that free will would still be a possibility even within a deterministic construct. Also, that determinism can actually offer a better explanation of free will than a thesis which depends upon indeterminacy, i.e. the opposite, and mere chance. So the commonplace thesis. This draws a close connection between chance and randomness. Like in common parlance, we may use those interchangeably. This commonplace thesis would tend to agree somewhat with Hume. Hopefully you've heard of him. If you haven't, he's got a lot of work out there. He's a philosopher, an English one of the, 17th century or 1700s. I forget now. He did a coin tossing experiment and to look at determinism, basically how many times it would flip one way and how many times another. And what he argued was that even if you were able to go back in time, as it were, and flip the coin again, it wouldn't necessarily, like if you erased all of your previous like this 1 in 2 chance, as it were, it extrapolates ridiculously. So he used these experiments and arguments. He believed strongly in God, and he used God within his deterministic paradigm. I'm not going to go into that. So it also seems this closeness between chance and randomness seems to be endorsed, whether knowingly or unknowingly, within scientific literature, with scientists using chance or randomness pretty much interchangeably to describe physical causes which may result in one of several unpredictable outcomes. And I've got a citation there that you don't need. So many within philosophy may well unthinkingly, like I said before, affirm this seeming interchangeability of these two terms. Others connect chance and randomness deliberately. So Sops, and we'll see who he is, for example, asserts the view that the universe is essentially probabilistic in nature, that the world is full of random happenings. So that would go against hard determinism, certainly. So it's very nearly a piece of philosophical orthodoxy that non-trivial, objective chances require indeterminism. It seems pretty straightforward even to the layman. The view is seldom defended, even by those who trouble to state the view explicitly, because it is taken that everybody, like that is kind of a common sense assumption. So traditionally, compatibilists have defined free will as an ability to act as we wish, admitting that it remains the case that our wishes are determined. No wonder Apostate Prophet has got a beef with philosophy at the moment. It can be argued that we do not, however, have true freedom without being able to make a choice between alternatives. So just being able to choose something that is already a determined choice, like it would be like the illusion of choice. It would be akin to what the architect in The Matrix speaks about, the subconscious, the choice on even the most subconscious level in which the test subjects, responded better to the Matrix. So an answer to this, to the argument that we can only have true freedom, we cannot have it rather without being able to make choices between alternatives, not just choose as we desire. An answer to this is I'm about to hit you with it, that if I could have acted other than this way means I would have done otherwise if I had wanted to, then my wishes hindered me, please follow with me, from acting otherwise. So my own wishes prevented me from acting otherwise, and that which I actually did was of my own free will. It's kind of circular. The argument is hindered somewhat by psychological variables, as one would imagine, like psychosis, mental illness, psychological traumas, obsessive compulsions, etc., which restrict the agent, as it were, the human being, even whilst they are physically unimpaired from, I don't know, reaching out and grabbing something. But a strong delusion or schizophrenia or some other psychological factor may hold them hostage, as it were, to a determined choice, if that makes any sense, that doesn't linguistically, to a predetermined choice. So mesh theories have been brought up to assert that freedom exists in an appropriate mesh between the agent's inner state and various elements of an action. That's been offered basically as an answer to this hindrance of psychological variables. So if humans possess the ability to act upon our reasons and our desires, we do, in fact, have the freedom required for moral responsibility, and then we can all be condemned as sinners again. Yay. So the free will versus causal determinism conversation parallels in many ways, because I had to slip this in, obviously, because it's me. Another debate which surrounds free will, which arises from what has come to be known as theological determinism. So many forms of religious exegesis assert that God is ultimately responsible for all things and all events. Accordingly, God's willing of X is both necessary and sufficient for X. If, however, he is ultimately responsible for all things by virtue of the fact that his will is the cause, then it would appear to follow that he is ultimately responsible for the actions and purposes acted out by human agents. This quantifier of free will ultimately led to nuanced versions of the philosophical problem of evil. And absence of human free will would, of course, render the concept of evil acts as just nonsensical. So both divine will and the view of a causal chain of events stretching backwards in time, consistent with other determinisms, such as the laws of nature, are accepted by many compatibilists. So long as our will is included within this chain, they say, we have freedom. Further, that causality in nature is related to the very possibility of reason and logic. This is their claim. We could not be certain of the truths of our arguments without, they argue, causality. I'm getting to the end, so worry. An advance on the theory of compatibilism. This is the argument that I'm giving in terms of philosophy, not my faith, by the way. So an advance on the theory of compatibilism, which, as we see, has these caveats that, people can pick holes in it. So this is semi-compatibilism. This has been postulated by John M. Fisher, and the proposal being that causal determinism and moral responsibility are indeed compatible, whether they preclude free will or not. So both versions are workable, as it were. The criteria being that the choice mechanism must be both sensitive to reason and owned by the agent. So the theory further draws a distinction between guidance control that we can exert and regulative control. So now I'm going to give you an example because that helps a lot with this kind of stuff. So a novice paraglider, somebody who's learning to paraglide. They have an instructor who I guess is strapped somewhere. I'm not a paraglider. I don't know. They've got their hands on the thingy. The guy is strapped like a parachute dude, like to the back with it. Right, we've got it in our minds. This instructor can manipulate and override the controls, that being regulative control, basically. So the instructor gives the instruction to the novice to veer left, and the novice does that. Had they tried turning right, the instructor would have overridden the control and caused the glider to veer left. Therefore, even though the novice did veer left, the glider would have veered left anyway, which precludes any possible alternative. So keep that in mind. There's there is no choice, as it were. They're given a choice, veer left. They take the choice to veer left. There was no alternative. So in this scenario, guidance control was exercised, i.e. by the novice, without the regulative control of the instructor, and meaning that they could not have gone right. So providing they also take responsibility, for this response mechanism. So to attain moral responsibility, an agent need only guidance control. This is what semi-compatibilism states. To respond to reasons, providing they can take responsibility for their response. So unlike other compatibilist theories, semi-compatibilism remains unimpeded or obstructed by the manipulation and criticism. the hypnosis, the autosuggestion, the psychosis, that which I mentioned earlier, by requiring that the agent own the mechanism of reason responsiveness in a fashion that is determinism consistent. So free will is often misunderstood, in closing, as being antithetical to the deterministic position, which goes back ultimately to our varying definitions of the terms in use. Suffice to say that free will may be argued to be a capability in order that at the point of choice, an agent is able to decide between alternatives regardless of their history, the driving force, the wishes, and other causal determinants. This, however, does not preclude a form of election, which is semi-compatibilism, that is both compatible with determinism and, key for Christians, preserves moral responsibility. Thank goodness. So, right, we've got to the end. Let me see if anybody's awake. Oh my gosh. Oh, threshing floor. I mentioned free quite a few times. I think probably free from the attacks of those who don't hold compatibilism to be acceptable. Like from the psychosis, the hypnosis, the thing. Right. Sorry to just hit you with that. Even I glanced at the intro and I was like, oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, this is right. Yeah, this was right. But yeah, I did get a couple of people to proofread. One of them goes to Speaker's Corner. They were really helpful. And the other one basically just started snoring after the intro. So, yeah. So philosophy. Who needs it really? Hi, Chuck. John, I'm not sure what you're asking the question. Okay, anywho, if anybody wants to study philosophy, they are more than welcome. But it's quite interesting. It does hurt your brain, I must admit, initially when you're not used to it. But God says, come, let us reason together. And yeah, I like it. I like arguing. So there's no right answer either, which is handy. Oh wow, Jeff, that sounds and that's the moment you found your faith. I'm only joking. So okay, I did have, well, maybe you can choose for the next time, I guess. If anybody has any questions, you're more than welcome on this topic or pretty much anything. I was not anything, but you know what I mean. I was going to do, the other things I had prepared are something about salvation within Islam. We have an archbishop in Britain, the Archbishop of York, who's criticised the London elite, basically the metropolitan elite, for patronising people who are proud to be English. That's maybe a niche audience interest article. And the other thing was, Australia, i.e. what is going on? Like, seriously, what is going on? I just, unreal stuff that I've been watching. Like, it's very authoritarian, very quickly, very, I don't know, I've been pretty gobsmacked. And I've, lived through lockdowns, obviously, but it just, I don't know, maybe it's because Australians are always pretty laid back and chilled out. And then, I don't know. I see one of them in the chat. There's always hope. There's always hope, villainous. Just have a look in the Bible. I don't know about for some of your police officers. They seem pretty. They've been drinking the Kool-Aid pretty deeply. So yeah. I'm trying to think of anywhere that's had a more disproportionate response. I mean, obviously, I'm not including China, and because I saw some pretty horrific stuff coming out of China initially, also. But I think maybe I remember speaking to some Australians I know right at the beginning of the British lockdown, and they had such ridiculously small numbers that there were basically hardly any restrictions. There was a massive, I remember, toilet tissue shortage here, and Australians were just skipping about, singing Waltzing Matilda, potentially riding kangaroos to work. I'm not sure what they get up to. But yeah, just chilling. And now it's like tear gas being fired at civilians. police. I saw a video yesterday, which was live streamed at the time, but I saw it later, and I think there were about nine Australian police, one sergeant, one potentially higher rank, just with this one dude in his car. Like, he didn't bring the windows down. They were trying to forcibly enter his car, like surreptitiously. They threatened to smash his windows. They were trying to cite him for the Australian flag until they realised how preposterous that sounded. They were telling him he was driving erratically when they had been, like, well, an unmarked car had been following him aggressively. So, like, it was just bizarre. It's the most, like, yeah, I don't know what to make of it. I just think we must pray for Australia because, well, why not? Like, give me a good reason why not. We need to pray for those police because my pet theory at the moment, I mean, I've always thought, maybe Steve Barnes notwithstanding, that people join the police. Well, some people join with a genuine desire to make positive changes and yada, 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 snore. However, I do believe there's a core element who were bullied at school and or have like mother issues or whatever it is, where they want to exert control over their peers and be able to hide behind a uniform and authoritarian, nonsense. And I think, whereas previously in Australian history, even, like, they've gone back to being a penal colony, it seems to me. It's just bizarre. Like, I don't know if Australians feel the same way because they're so chill. Like, a lot of them agree with the restrictive measures, and I think maybe they've got a similar mainstream to Britain, wherein they just don't see the protests. Like, the majority don't see the tens of thousands of Australians out protesting being treated like criminals rather than the descendants of criminals, which of course they are. But yeah, villainous. I don't know if you have any comments to make. But I will actually, I think I'll do that video tomorrow because I've got a good friend in real life, as it were, other than online good friends who is Australian, and their family is like on the ground, as it were. So yeah, maybe I'll wait and get their feedback because I'd made some notes and I just veered into Australian history and, like, I don't know, I went a bit academic. So, and the thing about salvation, I'll give you a spoiler alert, salvation in Islam, there isn't any. But I was obviously going to say more than that, and I will. Because, like, try and think of another world religion that doesn't have a little roadmap for chilling in heaven, or like even an Nata, or like, it's presumed that all religions, I think, other than Islam, I can't think, I've been like straining my brain. Anatta is a Buddhist concept that there is no personal afterlife. However, it's still preferable to the Islamic hell, which is what Muhammad used, like, remorselessly. It's not really the promise of heaven, even with the porno pictures that you can go into and the 60,000 little boys or 80,000. I can't keep up with them. They're so little and boyish. Yeah, it's not about any eternal peace or God being so loving that he wants a connection, like, with his slaves, I guess we're going to call them. Yeah, it's just the threat of hell, the threat of hell, the threat of hell. And Allah guides who he guides and misguides who he misguides. So, like, what are you going to do? Oh, yeah, leave Islam. Please, if you don't mind, just for me. So yeah, I will do a thingy on that because otherwise I'll start ranting. Hi, Open Secrets. So yeah, any questions, comments, requests for, like, subjects for me to do at a later time? Because I'm going to do a prem tonight for anybody who's new. Because, oh yeah, I got to 4,000 subscribers and watch every single Muslim now, like, unsubscribe. But it's not the point. The point is that I thought, what am I going to do that's good? And I must admit, I've put it up twice now, and some of the old timers have already seen it. But I challenge you to watch it and not smile, like, or maybe cry a little bit. So I'm going to put that on later, just for, I don't mind if I'm there by myself watching it. But I guess somebody in India just said it's like F off a clock, basically. I don't know, they must have gone to sleep. But we've got Americans and Australians in, so I guess I'll do it in like, I don't know, maybe 90 minutes after I finish here, which is going to be soon if nobody has a question, but I don't mind. Miss Piggy, long time no see. However, you may remember our private chats where I've told you, like, I find it quite scary. I don't know why. Yeah, eschatology. I was having another chat with my brother. He's like more versed in that sort of stuff than me, and he yeah, I'll do that as well, Warren. He can't understand why I'm a bit reticent for the end times to come. And I must admit, I think I was not stretching the truth, but wasn't being 100% truthful when he goes, well, give me a good reason then. Or you don't want Jesus to come back and everybody to be like, it ought to be great. And I was like, the Great Commission. We don't have time. We haven't got time for this coming back business. We have to save more people. But I think, I don't know if I've got the energy at the moment to fight the Antichrist. Like, I'm joking. But there's like children who I know. I'd like to see them grow up and have their own children. And like, they won't do that on the new earth or heaven. Like, unless they're alive at the coming. Anyway, yeah, so I'm still of the, let's just hang it out for a little while and try to save as many people as possible. And yeah, put our feet up for a minute as well, I guess, and pray for Australia and Muslims as well. Like, I think it's pretty important. There's like more than 1 billion. Like, just utterly, it's not even their delusion. It's Muhammad's delusion, if he existed. It's pretty sad. Like this neuro-linguistic programming, this fear-based, I don't know, like it's, yeah, I don't know. They need prayer more than the Christians that they're persecuting, to be fair, in terms of like the Taliban and ISIS. And that's another topic that I'll be covering just as soon as I know a little bit about what I'm talking about, because mainly I know historical stuff about them. So, but it's not good. I put up a video earlier from International Christian Concern. Please watch it and click on their link and go and subscribe and the good stuff. I often use their reports, their written reports. They have agents, operatives, I don't know what you call them, on the ground in many, many places. And the vast majority of Christians in Afghanistan are apostates from Islam. So you can imagine, like, they are doubly doodad, as it were. Also, some are electing to stay. Like, they have opportunities to flee, and they are choosing to remain with the afflicted, I guess, the rest of the afflicted. It's like there's already public executions going on, and there's door-to-door, like, looking for Christians. So they need prayers. It's all to the glory of God, ultimately. And like the guy like Jeff from International Christian Concern says, we're looking at it with human eyes, but ultimately, God has a plan. Like Jeremiah 29, like God has a plan, and it is a plan, ultimately for our good. And he can bring goodness out of a void. He can bring goodness out of evil. He can bring goodness for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. Like, he can, and he does. He promises that he will, and he has yet to promise something that he hasn't delivered on. I don't mean end time stuff. Obviously, that's in the bag. Whew. Yeah. So much death and destruction. Like, but on the plus side, salvation. So, yay. It didn't sound convincing, but it is. It was. It will be. Okay. No, Mohammed Hamdan. No, this is according to statistics. Like International Christian Concern have been in Afghanistan, have been prepping for this actually for quite some time because of the way the political waters were flowing. So, no, it's pretty common that in majority Muslim countries, the majority of the Christians, other than like Coptic Christians or, I don't know, like certain very old traditions of Christianity that are native. No, I don't believe it's anything as cynical as that, because they're still electing, like I said, maybe you missed what I said, not to flee the country. So, yeah. And let's not forget, Mohammed, even though I do love having you here, let's not forget the absolute hordes of Muslim migrants. We're going to call them migrants because we're charitable, like fleeing from Muslim countries. None of them are fleeing from the West to get back to their spiritual home or their brethren, or they're going through other Muslim countries. Would you believe? Yes, you would. I know you would. To reach Kafir countries. Who knows why? Who knows why, when Islam is Akbar? I just can't imagine. Oh, yeah, Sharia. Don't get me started. Please, medieval prescriptive living that has held back Islamic nations for centuries now. Which is the reason that they are mostly, if they are not utterly rich in natural resources that they're able to trade, potentially for interest, which is un-Islamic, as everybody knows. Yeah, to answer your question or your statement, Mohammed Hamdan, you're wrong. Yeah, there's no reason, literally, there's no reason to pipe up when someone's got a big, machete waiting to chop the heads off Christians. Oh, by the way, no. Oh, I know, villainous. Yeah, it's we call it something different in private. Well, I call it something different when I'm not live streaming, I'll tell you that much. Yeah, shorter phrase, shorter words even. Let's see what Mohammed say. Maybe. I don't know what the Spanish people. Do you mean in the occupation? Yeah, I'm not sure where you went with that. I don't quite get it. Yeah, I guess Chuck. Yeah, I mean, overall sovereignty, and it's already ordained. There's a convergence of events that has to happen if we look into Revelation, when God speaks to the martyrs who are crying out for their blood to be avenged. These things must happen, and within that chain of events, certainly Satan has to be locked up. That's a point. Before all this tribute, there has to be 1,000 years of peace. I need to get my eschatology in check. Yeah, I think Egypt needs to be uninhabitable for 40 years. I might be making that up. No, it's definitely decades. And then there has to be a peace treaty with Israel. I'm glad I'm not Daniel or Ezekiel or John on Patmos, to be fair. Oh, I'm sorry, Chuck. I just get involved. It's easier when you don't have to type it out quickly. Islamic State Watch.com. Christians under the Chinese social credit system. I think pretty much. I mean, I know a little bit about it, and I know some pretty high. I love you too, Chuck. I know that some pretty. Sorry, I'm just being Canadian for a second. Where was I? China. Some pretty high profile people have gone on extended absence or just disappeared due to that credit scoring system. I guess the thing about, if Germaine Greer can be deplatformed, she is the archetypal feminist, if you see what I mean. And she did a lot for that whole movement. And if then men can infiltrate in the form of transgender women, and if a comment of hers that this is the, oh gosh, don't get me started. This is the thing with the global warming. Science is it's the science. The science is in. It's done and dusted. It's a deal. And then you go, oh, but men are born with testicles, and they go, you what? You hate preacher. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you said that. Because all Jermaine, that's science, basically. All Jermaine Greer said is, I'm happy to call these people, whichever pronouns they want, or maybe their name. but they're not women. And like there was outrage, people clutching their pearls. There was just pandemonium basically, and she got deplatformed and asked never to return. So if that can happen, that's social credit scoring. Like that is literally it. Once you're deplatformed, once you're branded a racist or a transphobe, or eventually it'll be someone who's anti-pedophilia, like, you know, I don't know what they'll call that, but pedophobe maybe. The point is that it's already here. It's just China's not very subtle, and we, for all the Diane Abbott, apologies for anyone who doesn't know who she is, actually blessings for anybody who doesn't know who she is, because we don't. I wish I didn't know who she was, to be fair, but she is in a position of some dubious authority, and I don't even want to say what I genuinely feel about that lady. This lady, I'm going to go with lady because visually you wouldn't ID it necessarily immediately. This lady has just so many faux pas. Like she's in the shadow cabinet. Basically, she's only there because she slept with the former leader of the shadow government. That aside, she argued once on national TV that Chairman Mao did more good than harm. This is the same Chairman Mao who killed billions, makes Hitler look like just like some rowdy teenager. Yeah, and she sat there. And when it was pointed out to her, the full extent of his like genocidal decrees and actions and tendencies and she just doubled down. It was, I mean, it's priceless. But this woman has got a say, theoretically, in how this country's run. So I don't know how I got onto Diana, but I do apologise, but I could keep going. But I won't, because let's pray for her. Let's just, why not, stick her on the list. So, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. But she just sidetracks my mind. Oh, mate, she's awful. Anywho, so unless there are any final questions, yeah, maybe philosophy isn't the way forward for this channel. I don't know. Like maybe if I hadn't read out a stone cold assignment, maybe if I'd have put it into more colloquial, like chit chatty terms. It's pretty important debate, even like theological determinism. It's, you know, it's spawned, well, it bolsters Calvinism, etc. Threshing floor. I saw a video by John. What do you mean? What do you meme? Even recently, it depends whether you mean comedically or like in what respect. I tend to. There are very few comedians, like good comedians, I guess. Or obviously, it's subjective. People who I find funny, who I wouldn't. Yeah, I like listening to them, but it's not my go-to. I was very saddened by Sean Locke's passing recently. I'd like before that announcement, I would imagine that for the last at least 3 months, I've heard some of his comedy at least 6 out of each 7-day period, maybe. Thank you very much, David. Oh, you're in that corner of the. You're in the penal colony. Oh, I'll try and send you a VO. Yes, villainous C.S. Lewis. Yeah, it's true. Maybe I'll go back to Lewis. I didn't ever finish those screw tapes. I don't know. But back at the ranch, I found by searching out a uni textbook that I need for my next module, I stumbled across an app or a website which has got a massive library. Like, I was so excited. Like books that I needed and wanted, and so yeah, I've downloaded a few of those, and how am I going to do it? I don't know. Maybe I'll upload them to Discord, but I can only do a certain file size. Either way, C.S. Lewis was prolific in writing, and he's so charming, and he's like passed away obviously, but I believe that he was integrative, much that I believe Martin Luther was integrative. So if somebody's earnest and genuine and a Christian and being honest, before God and to themselves, even if they fail to convince us of a doctrinal argument, or even if we believe similarly that they're wrong in certain respects, it's no less charming to read their reasonings. And he was a very clever man. And I do like clever people, or people who are willing to use the brain that God gave them. Right. I'm wondering whether those, I think Chuck's having a side conversation because it's just the way he doesn't put the name of who he's talking to. Oh, he's talking to James. Okay, anyway, on that bombshell, hi man, I think you just missed it because I'm kind of done, bruv. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to do this. Right, so it's, what time is it? Yeah, about an hour-ish, hour and 15 / hour and 30 for everybody who, their mum isn't going to tell them to go to bed soon, or anyone whose mum is going to tell them and they're going to watch under the covers, as it were. I will put that on for, I'm trying to work out the time. Cool. Well, it doesn't matter because some of you in Australia. So we'll go with 90 minutes. And I'm going to close this up because it's waffle central here. And I do like ice cream on mine. So if you want to say your goodbyes to each other, I'm going to press the button off the power. If you don't understand, it goes to your head. I'm only teasing. Okay, then, on those final words of brushing floors. All right, then. I'll see you all in this prem, even though some of you have already seen it. But come anyway, because I just love the video that I'm putting up. All right, God bless you and keep you, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.